There are crowns that take a lifetime to earn, and then there are crowns that last less than a heartbeat. This is the true and tragic story of Don Luís Filipe, the heir who briefly inherited a kingdom in blood and noise, and who, by the cruelest twist of fate, lived long enough to be called king only for time to rip it away. Portugal at the start of the 20th century was a country on edge. Political corruption, social unrest, and secret revolutionary societies circling the monarchy like wolves. King Carlos I tried to steady the ship, but his reign had enemies, not least among them the Carbonaria and extremist nationalists who blamed the crown for stagnation and scandal. On the morning of February 1st, 1908, the royal family returned to Lisbon from the royal palace at Vila Vicosa. Crowds lined the Praça do Comércio to greet them. Flags waved. Carriages rolled along the quay. The mood should have been festive, but the undercurrent was danger. Then, in a blink, grief and violence exploded. 2 assassins stepped forward and opened fire on the royal carriage. Bullets tore the air. King Carlos I fell mortally wounded almost instantly. His eldest son, Don Luís Filipe, the Prince Royal, Duke of Braganza, and heir apparent, was also struck. The younger son, Infante Manuel, survived with injuries. The Queen, Maria Amelia, escaped unharmed. In the minutes that followed, a peculiarly bitter question framed itself. With his father dead and the heir wounded, who wore the crown now? According to succession law, when one sovereign dies, the heir becomes sovereign at the moment of the predecessor's death. By that technical chain, Luís Filipe was, for the brief period before his own death, King of Portugal, whether he ever realized it or not. Contemporary reports and later records indicate Luís Filipe survived his father by about 20 minutes before succumbing to his wounds. In that narrow span, historians argue he was technically monarch, the shortest reign recorded in modern dynastic lists. Picture the scene: a bullet-ravaged carriage, a palace plunged into shock, ministers and officers scrambling to preserve order, and a single human life balancing between heir and sovereign in a blur of blood and proclamations. For those 20 minutes, nothing about Portugal felt certain. The future unraveled in public. All the formalities and rituals that usually define kingship, proclamations, oaths, a sovereign's first commands, were swallowed by chaos. By the time Luís Filipe died, the only one left breathing to assume the throne was his younger brother, Manuel, who by right became King Manuel II. That transfer marked not a triumph but a collapse. Within 2 years, the monarchy would be overthrown, and the First Republic declared in October 1910. Luís Filipe's short, tragic passage into history is more than a quirky record about the shortest reign. It's a portrait of a royal family caught between public duty and private fragility. Luís Filipe himself was young, barely 20, groomed from birth for statecraft and duty. Plans for advantageous dynastic marriages were underway. Some described him as serious and dutiful, a future king who had barely begun to live as himself. In an instant, those plans were crushed on the cobbles of Lisbon. The crown that might have sat on his brow for decades instead sits in the archives as a footnote, a symbol of how quickly history can turn. What followed the regicide was a nation in shock and a monarchy fatally weakened. The assassination shook the Portuguese state, exposed its instability to the world, and sparked political flows that culminated in the 1910 revolution. Manuel II's reign, born in the aftermath of murder, was fragile and short. The monarchy could not recover from the loss of legitimacy and momentum. Luís Filipe's 20 minutes, therefore, were not only a personal tragedy, but also a hinge in Portuguese history, the moment that began the end of the Braganza monarchy. There's a bitter, human lesson wrapped in Luís Filipe's story. Crowns are promises to the future, but futures are fragile. The law of succession may be precise, and the recording of names and lists and registries may assign a reign by the tick of a clock. Yet the lived reality of a young man felled by an assassin, a grieving family, and a nation about to change course is far messier. Luís Filipe did not sit a single day on a throne. He made no laws. He gave no speeches as monarch. And yet, in a sense, he became the most vivid symbol of a collapsing age. The boy king who was briefly king only because his father's life ended a heartbeat earlier. If you're left with one image from this story, let be simple and terrible. A carriage at Terreiro do Paco, gun smoke hanging, ministers rushing with papers that suddenly meant everything, and the idea that an entire dynasty's fate can pivot on 20 minutes of human time. History keeps lists, dates, and records, but near those lines you can find grief, randomness, and the fragile lives that sit behind every entry. If this short, strange, and tragic corner of history surprised you, subscribe for more unbelievable true stories where single moments change kingdoms. Because sometimes a crown is just a sliver of time, and sometimes history is measured in minutes.